Hello everybody, Michael Spray Jones coming to you with another video in the rigged series. This is video number 3 where we are talking about fibrous problems aren't our problems. If you have been around for the first 2 videos, we have done why R value alone is not effective and doesn't make a lot of sense. Air barriers and air leakage are a real problem with fibrous products. And then today we are getting into how the code really isn't written for the spray foam solution, where the issues encountered and the allowances for the code aren't written for the spray foam solution. And we're going to get into this today. It's going to be a little bit more dry in the sense of why this is, but if you are building in 2024, you're going to want to stick around for this video. Why? Because I'm going to show you areas that you are going to be using spray foam insulation in your project, under slab, walls, external basements, vaulted ceilings, what have you. I'm going to show you how code is written for fibrous and not for foam, and then the antidote to these, what we have to do engineering-wise in order to get these things approved, because the body of the text is not written for us. So stick around. I think you're going to find this very useful for your project this year. What we're going to do is take a look at code that doesn't require seals. If a seal is required, it's a commercial building, you have an architect, you have an engineer, and what they say goes, and they can apply products as they see fit because they're carrying the risk and liability. But in Canadian Building Code Part 9 is non-sealed, so residential construction. And in those situations, the builder is required to be following the building code. So what we're going to take a look at here is just a couple of examples of areas where the code doesn't even have anything listed for foam. Section 9.13, 913, damp proofing, waterproofing, and soil gas control. So the damp proofing section is controlling of ingress water, moisture, and soil gas. So below grade walls and floors where they're in contact and there's drainage. So they require damp proofing, whether it be on the inside or on the outside of the buildings. And when they list damp proofing materials, they don't go into any great detail on the actual products listed for spray foam insulation. So they're going to list out here protective coatings for roof, asphalt coatings, vapor barrier, polyethylene sheet, asphalt for construction built up roof coatings and coverings and waterproof systems. So in 913, if you want to be in compliance from protection, moisture protection of interior finishes or waterproofing, there is nothing listed in the actual list of materials with a standard for spray foam. So what that means is if I want to comply with waterproofing, I need to go and show with a third-party engineering firm that the spray foam is going to meet waterproofing requirements, and then I'm going to go have to list that with the building code department people, get them to review it, make sure they agree with our results and our conclusions, and then from there it would be approved. So the code in this situation is not written to allow it. There's not a specific line of text for spray foam to allow it to be done. So can it be done? Yes, but you're going to have to go and take steps to get it approved. So another area would be crawl spaces, heated or unheated, ground cover of unheated crawl spaces, ground covering of heated crawl spaces. And unheated, they're just listing 50 millimeters of asphalt, 100 millimeters, so that's 2-inch or 4-inch of Portland cement, type S rolled roofing, 0.10 millimeter of polyethylene, and that the joints in sheet type ground coverage need to be covered. Again, heated crawl spaces, they're going to list polyethylene sheet, CAN CGSB, 51 is the standard for vapor barrier polyethylene sheet, and they're going to list where it needs to be for lapping of the joints and sealing of the edges. Again, nothing is listed in here for the allowance of spray foam. So in Canada, covering of the ground of crawl spaces is very common. You've seen multiple videos where I've got in contact with ground, but again, what we have to do is we have to go get details written engineering specified, and then submit to the building code community. So what we need is an actual line of text in, like the poly's there and other products there, even concrete is there, but they haven't written something specifically for spray foam yet. So that needs to get done. Okay, the big one, the biggest one that is the code's not written for spray foam. It's written specifically for fiberglass, and this is the biggest piece of proof, is section 919 on venting. It says right here, opening statement, except where it can be shown to be unnecessary, where insulation is installed between the ceiling and underside of the roof sheeting, a space shall be provided between the insulation and the sheeting, and vents shall be installed to permit transfer of moisture from the space to the exterior. Okay, so the default setting is that you are going to vent, period, unless you can show us that it's unnecessary. So to amend the code so that the code is not rigged for fiberglass, because this doesn't take into account rigid insulation, right? You need to show that it's unnecessary. So rather than writing the paragraph line that unless we show it to be unnecessary, it must, that's taking the default setting that it has to be all of the time. There should be a couple of tiers that if you're going to build the assemblies this way with these products, then here's the compliance road that you go with this. So there would be an allowance for spray foam non-vented. And this has created the biggest piece of problem, right? This section in our Canadian Building Code does not give a lot of lenience unless we go back into Part 5 and have an engineer write a opinion paper showing that it is to be unnecessary. Where we are finally going with things in Canada is to eventually have our code amended that there can be a sub-line for when using spray foam closed cell direct to roof deck. It can be non-vented. We need to get the text of the code to finally recognize this, as opposed to providing exemptions or opinion rulings. Like where we are right now, if you want to take out a permit on non-vented roof, you're going to need to have an address-specific letter to seal it again. That's where we're back to, and that's due to risk and liability, and they don't want to have anything to do with having to make decisions on blanket approvals. So this is where the code, and it all has to do with the fact that the code is written with specifically for fiberglass, because you don't have ventilation problems with rigid cellular plastic insulations. And I've got specific video on that. The video on Greatest Intel Drop, where we go over roofs and non-vented roofs, will detail that out for you more. It's taken us a number of years, but we finally have gotten it involved into the code that vapor barrier material for vapor barrier compliance is listed finally. For the longest period of time, sentence number 1 was that we had to provide and show compliance to 60 nanograms to an ASTM test E96. So whether you're in America, United States, or in Canada, E96 is a standardized test for vapor transmission of materials. Finally, down at the bottom here, number 8, where foam plastic insulation functions as vapor barrier, it shall be sufficiently thick so as to meet the requirements of sentence 1, which is just here, the 60 nanograms. So the code's made a little bit of progress in that for the longest period of time we had building code inspectors, because the spray foam was not listed, they wouldn't recognize it. They had to get an exemption in order to recognize it. Now it's in the body of the text, so we've made one little bit of progress there. But in your neck of the woods, wherever you are, you're going to want to check and make sure that your code does recognize or provide a provision for you to recognize spray foam as a vapor barrier. And then based on what standard, probably it's going to be the ASTM E96 test, since that's a North America-wide test. And then finally, I think that air barrier systems and required barrier-to-air leakage, it's fine. They're calling for continuity. In a cold weather climate where we are, there has to be continuity of an air barrier to stop the warm, moisture-laden air from getting past the sheetrock and into the wall assembly or ceiling assembly, attic assembly. And it has to be continuous, which means when you get to an interior wall, there can't be a break in it. We're trying to achieve this right now with the poly, and I've shown you that this just doesn't work. In video number 2, we went over that with the air leakage rates with penetrations and without penetrations. But in our code, They don't list specifically spray foam insulation as a subset within the code of product. Now, it is recognized as an air barrier system. It's an air barrier material, and when we combine the caulking, it meets the intent of the code. But what the code needs to do is have an actual, like the vapor barrier clause that we just looked at, there needs to be an actual line when using spray foam, and then to detail that out a little bit further. For example, I've seen a lot of people with closed cell spray foam go and put the foam between the studs and then not do the caulking. They say that they don't do the caulking, or the caulking is someone else's responsibility. The issue is that you don't have continuity of the air barrier at that point. You have air leakage through the wood-to-wood joints. So whose responsibility is it? It should be the spray foam person's scope of work. If the code would have that written into the body of the text of the code itself, then it would be very clear. And I think there would be a lot less confusion with building code inspectors as to what they're looking at. But right now, since the spray foam itself and the assembly rating isn't really recognized as a line item, it makes it a lot more ambiguous as to how to reach compliance with some of these products. So again, it's really not written to give the clarity needed to give enforcement and proper diagnosis and specification. Well, there you sort of have it, folks. This is an example of what to look for in your neck of the woods, in your county, in your state, in your province, on what areas the spray foam needs to overcome. It means doing your diligence, submitting your paperwork to your building authorities. We as an industry need to get together and actually get the foam written into the body of the text. That's at a governmental level. But the rest of it on a personal, in your neck of the woods level is do your homework, go submit, get your paperwork, get your engineering done so that when you go to pull permits, whether you want to go under slab, exterior foundation, up against concrete, direct to roof deck, recognized as a vapor barrier, recognized as an air barrier, whatever you're going to need, it's already pre-approved, and then you won't have a problem at the permit stage, and things will go smooth for you and your client. It's the professional way to deal with it. So if you made it this far in the video, thanks for waiting. I was gone on vacation here for a little while, needed to recharge the batteries, hence why the delay on videos, but we're going to get back to putting out some regular content here for you guys in the next coming weeks. Stay tuned, leave me a comment, share, like, and subscribe. Talk to you later. Bye.